G'day, hi, and welcome. Take two. I forgot to plug in my microphone. Oops. Again, one of the voiceovers. Today's video is basically about people who basically this is going to obviously be geared towards more beginners, and it's not about bad riding habits of people who know better and that they know they're speeding, they know they're doing bad things, they know they're hot dogging and crossing the line and doing all kinds of stuff like that, but this is more geared towards new riders. Regardless of the type of bike you're riding, you'll hear me talk about, and if you've been following this channel for any length of time, number one, I thank you. But number two is that you'll constantly hear me talk about the importance of low speed handling and why it's so important. Now, some common mistakes, without getting too in depth of each type of mistake, and even if you want to grab a pen and a piece of paper, there's something for you to watch out for yourself. And most of it's going to pertain to low speed handling. Some of it's going to be pertaining to high speed handling. Now, when I come out on the road here, I want you to watch something. I want you to watch where I am in the lane. And there's something I've noticed, especially on bikes that are people who get on bikes that are bigger. Now, there's not much of a dividing line here, but you'll see in a second what's going to go on. So when I come out, I'm already in my lane. I'm not crossing the center line at all. You never want to cross the yellow line. I see a lot of, particularly people on bigger bikes like Goldwings and Harleys and stuff like that. They come out and they almost go right halfway through the other lane before they start to straighten up and come in onto the like a real lazy turn. And there's no reason to be doing that. And I'll tell you why. Because even yes, you're on a bigger bike or whatever, knees into the tank, feet on the pegs. When you're moving, the bike's stable. When your feet are on the pegs, when your feet are off the pegs, the bike is unstable. Any bike. Some people are not comfortable. They put their feet out, they do this, and that unstables the bike, so then they turn really wide. Now you say, yeah, but if there's a car coming, I'll take care of it. And here I'm doing that. The road wasn't quite wide enough for me to get that there. I had to put my foot down there, but you can see that I'm still, on the bike and pretty stable, even though it's a rough surface. But the point I'm making is when you're coming out, you'll see a lot of newer riders do this. They go almost to the other halfway, like I say, halfway into the other lane before they come back into their own lane. You might say, yeah, I know I'm doing it, whatever, but keep this in mind. That's going to become a reflex action. It's going to become something that you're going to do without thinking of it. It's going to become intuitive. And that might come back to bite you one day when you pull out and there is traffic coming, and you might get clipped by you might actually go head into another vehicle because you came out too far. In fact, there was a lady that got killed, not right in my area, but that's what happened. She was pulling out and she crossed the line. Again, probably worked a million times in a row, come out, big heavy tour bike. It was a Goldwing or a Harley or something like that, coming out, nice wide turn, but then miscalculated the oncoming traffic, and because she wasn't in her lane, she basically went, just enough to hit the front quarter panel, you know what I mean, just enough. So when you're coming out, stop at the light, don't coast through the light or the stop or whatever it is, even if you have to right away, if you have to turn, come to a stop, if you have to stop anyway, come to a stop, bleed your speed rate off, come to a stop, make sure your bike is fairly straight, but then if when you stop, stop in the lane that's going to give you the best turning ability. So if you're turning right, you want to be into the right side of the lane. If you're turning left, you want to be the left side of the lane. Whatever's going to give you that nice sharp turn. The other one is don't gun it when you're taking off, because when you take off and you gun it, you lose your turning radius. But the other one is the feet on the pegs one. Now, I had some commenters comment about that on the taking off on the big heavy tour bikes, and this comes down to your braking and stuff like that. That when you come to a stop, you want your front end straight. Now, I'm going to be coming up doing a UE here, and I want you to show. When I do this, my feet never come off the pegs when I turn, and I have no problem. You'll see where I end up in the lane. I end up right where I want in the lane, so I come to my stop here. Okay, gotta wait for a bit of traffic. But the idea here is just to show you that some people, what they do is they don't look, if they have to do it like a U-turn kind of like this, they don't look far enough into the turn. You got to look where you want to be. So I'll come out here. Okay, so there we go. So I'm already, my feet are on the pegs here. They don't come off the pegs. See, that's a nice slow turn. And I'm right in my lane. I'm very far, I'm like right in the center of the lane, right where I want it to be. That was a perfect turn. in the sense of, feet are on the pegs, whatever. Definitely doing all my shoulder checks. That's the other thing a lot of people don't do is enough shoulder checks. And when they're coming to a stop, they don't check their mirrors enough before the stops. It's something that you have to do, but you have to practice it to make it instinctive. So meaning I'm at the point now where I'm constantly checking my mirrors before every stop. If there's somebody behind me particularly, I always want to give the guy behind me enough time to stop. Because again, like I said, with most motorcycles, they have enough stopping power to stop a race car, and let alone, and most people cannot stop as fast as you, even if they're paying attention. Heavier vehicles have more inertia, etc., etc. So these are just some of the little things that people kind of, especially when they're new or they don't ride a lot, they tend to me, the one that gets me the most is people dragging their feet through the lights. There's just no reason for it, no matter what type of bike we're talking. You got to think about it again, when your feet are off the pegs, your bike is unbalanced. So if you have, for example, we'll use a Goldwing fully loaded with the luggage at the, all the bags and everything are, you got that top bag in the back, or that top box in the back, or whatever, full of stuff. You got a passenger on there. You end up with a kind of a bit of a high center of gravity. And what ends up happening there is that people come in, they use the front brake only. The bike is not stable if you're only using the front brake. You should always use your back brake and then your front brake in sequence. And stop with the bike as straight as possible. Even if you're making a turn, you want the front end to be as straight as possible, because when you go to start again, you're not starting with the bike, the tire kind of to one side or the other, which can offset your balance of the bike as you're going. So you always want the bike to get going a bit with the front end straight, then start turning. A lot of people sometimes forget this. They'll turn with the tire kind of, and I've seen many a Goldwing go down at lights because of this. The guy comes in, you'll see the front end, and not just Goldwings, but bikes in general. You'll see the front end dive a bit when they come to a stop, and when they do that, they didn't use their back brake. And yes, you got more stopping power on the front, but you need the back brake to stabilize the bike. So you use your back brake, then your front brake. And when you're not doing it right, your front end will tell you. If you find your front end is diving when you come to a stop, you'll also find that it throws your balance off a bit too. But when you use the back brake and then the front brake, it's very 1-2 kind of together in a finesse. It's like you're using both brakes at the same time. It's just you apply a little more pressure to the back first just to stabilize the bike. You'll find your stops come not only smoother, but when you have a heavy loaded bike, you come to a straight stop, you only have to put down your left foot most of the time. Some people like to put down both feet. But if you're going to put both feet down, make sure the bike is completely stopped before you take your feet off the pegs. Some bikes you can flat foot on both sides, so if that's the case, whatever. But like my bike, for example, it's a little tall. I just use the 1 foot. But I've ridden heavier bikes of all types and just did the 1 foot method and just cover the back brake, depending on if you're on a hill or something. Sometimes you want to do that. If you're coming down a hill is usually more trickier when you're stopped at a hill that's on a downslope. A lot of people tend to hold just the front brake, but you can hold the back brake too. The other one is putting your bike in neutral at a light. It's kind of a bad idea, because if something's coming up on you and somebody's not paying attention, you can't just do an evasive maneuver. So it's better to always leave your bike in gear when you at a light. The other one is the shoulder checks. Guys, look around. Yes, I know full face helmets can be a little bit more cumbersome, but look around, do those shoulder checks. If you're on the sport bikes particularly, shoulder checks are a little bit harder. Use your mirrors for sure, but also your shoulder checks. Look before you leap. Don't leave your safety in somebody else's hand, because 90% of the time when there is an accident, the motorcycle rider is the one that gets injured, regardless of who's at fault. But again, defensive driving, just look out for everybody. That type of thing. The other little mistakes, most of them are at low speed handling. Another one, and I'll just see if I can get into here, because there's a lot of little stuff, and I'll be bringing up as I go. But when people are turning off of, say, like a one road, especially in rural areas like this, we got a lot of gravel on the side of the road, and what you got to keep in mind is every time like a tractor trailer or something goes around these, they usually take up a lot of road, and they usually bring a lot of rocks and grit. And guys with pickup trucks tend to like to ride with the tires in the ditch kind of thing, with the big 4x4s. And they usually spin out when they go and they shoot rocks, what I call asteroid fields, at almost every intersection. A lot of guys and girls miscalculate that when they're turning, and they come in too fast and they lean the bike, which would be a nice perfect lean, but they spin out on the gravel. So don't be afraid to slow down. Give yourself time to slow down. If you've got traffic behind you, start slowing them down a bit early, so when you make your turn, and then learn how to trail brake and stuff like that, you're not spinning out on the gravel when you're turning. Most of your accidents with motorcycles, I forget what the percentage is, but it's quite high, is almost always at low speed. And when you get like loss of traction, it's usually too high a speed. The other one, then I'll do it as a separate thing, is miscalculating the speed of a corner. A lot of people tend to not know where to enter a corner, that type of thing, but that's a different video for a different time. But these are just some of the things. The big one is keep your feet on the pegs as soon as the bike's moving. Look well into your turn. I'll do more about turns, and especially U-turns and stuff like that. I got some footage. It'll take me a little while to get it out, but I think it's very important to understand countersteering and counterbalancing and the difference between the two, and practice it, especially for you guys with the heavier bikes. Those bikes tend to be stable when they're going in a straight line, but I've seen people handle Gold Wings fully loaded with a passenger and a dog on, the wife and the dog is with them, and the guy's like going around like the parking lot as if he's on a scooter, just because his low speed handling is so good. But anyway, there's more to cover, but I'll do it in segments. So anyway, I'll leave it at that for now, and just ride well, ride safe, take care.